Rex, what do you think?
It was good. I had lots of questions thinking about what you were talking about. Um, a lot of it reminded me of my journey of just discovering my emotions and like managing them better and being more present and responsive, but not being overtaken by the fear. I like how you said what did you had a word for it where you're either kind of closed off or open. You're constricted,
Yeah. You're contracted.
contracted.
Contracted is the word I use, but constricted is the same.
Yeah. Because that really can dictate how you respond. Like you said, if you're always in fear, then you're going to respond by trying to protect,
Yeah.
whatever you are, whatever you perceive is going on. Um, did you have any like tips or ways that people can be kind of aware of what they're feeling, but maybe not following the would you say triggered or not
Yeah.
responding? Like, okay, maybe I'm triggered, but I don't have to respond in a triggered way. Is there any
Yeah.
tips for that?
Well, I think Liz mentioned it earlier. It's like, so you're a big fan of spaciousness, um, timeouts.
Mhm.
I do think that like the key is what's happening when we're in triggered and contracted states is the limbic brain has been alerted that there is a problem, and the body literally starts sending adrenaline and norepinephrine and all the things, and then we're literally contracted. Our nervous system gets contracted. And so the reason we need space is because we have to actually bring more space into the nervous system, but with our breath and and allow for it to slow down. So if you're revving your engine of your car, if you slam on the brakes too fast, the car is going to roll over itself. So you kind of come to a slow stop. So that's what we want to do in the nervous system. And when we calm the nervous system with our breath and with maybe it's a walk or, it's not technology, it's definitely not technology. It's getting out in nature. It's taking some deep breaths. I mean, really simple things. People like brush past them. They're like, yeah, I did the breath. Like, that's not the breath. That's not it. So it's really giving your body what it needs to create that space and slow down so the nervous system calms down. The amygdala starts to quiet down. The prefrontal cortex comes back online again. And we can literally start being in flow again. That's what flow is. And once you get into that state, and sometimes it takes 5 minutes, sometimes it takes a day, it just depends on how your trauma, and your nervous system reactivity and all of that. But the breath is really just the greatest portal in movement. Breath and the movement are the greatest portal to calming that down so that you can then move into a more connected state or start taking the steps to move into the connected state. So often, I know this is a long answer. Can I keep going, Rex?
Please.
Is it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. What happens is people, when I used to teach mindfulness in schools, parents would be like, okay, can you teach my kid not to be angry? And I'm like, absolutely not. That is not what I'm here to do. Anger is part of a human emotion. We want to teach them how to be in right relationship to their anger and garner the wisdom from it. So once the nervous system calms down and you're available. Okay, now I get to go look at what was I triggered about and what was it here to teach me or tell me? And am I triggered from an intelligent place or an unintelligent place? So if I'm triggered from an egoic place, it's likely not super intelligent. If I'm triggered from a place of presence, someone's breaking into my house and I'm saying no, that's intelligent. That's a valuable place to apply my attention and awareness. So you got to get calm so that you can access more information. And that starts with the breath. But so many of us are unaware that we're reactive, that we're triggered, because we are so triggered all the time. 95% of us are triggered 95% of the time.
Really? That's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just look.
it's amazing how much the limbic system can really hijack the brain and, like you said, block the prefrontal cortex, and then you're just emotional all the time and responding or reacting rather than actually, like Dave likes to say, be a responder rather than a reactor.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's so true. Like just making that parallel with um, EMTs who are responding. They're not coming there freaking out. Oh my gosh! Look at there's
Right.
oh what's that
Yeah.
over there? Oh gosh, I can't.
You're bleeding.
There's an ear over here, and
Exactly right. I've used this example
yeah,
before.
you can't get much done if you're reacting versus responding. Um, that was a really good answer. Thank you. Um, so now you said what sent you on this path was you were, I think, 8 months pregnant with your third child, and your marriage began to deteriorate. Were you into psychology or anything before that happened, or what were you doing before that?
Yeah. I had planned to go back to school and get a degree in child psychology. And then I didn't because I was a single mom with 3 kids. So my background was interior design and architecture. I've always dabbled in, sociology, psychology, self-help, spirituality. It was always, that was always happening for me. Um, and then, well, I mean, it's a fun story, but when I went through my divorce and I became a single mom, a friend of mine called me and said, "You need to go do this Martha Beck thing." And I'm like, "Who's Martha Beck?" And, I'm like, "Are you crazy? I have 3 kids, no money. I'm working 2 jobs. I don't have time to do a coaching program." And then 24 hours later, I was signed up for the program. And,
Wow.
here I am years later. So life led me to that. And it's always been an interest of mine. I've always had an interest in spirituality and all these kinds of practices. So yeah, it's always been in me.
Did you notice like a big difference too after you started adopting these practices in your own life and relationships?
Huge. Because I stopped, when I was going through my divorce, it was all his fault. Like, he had a drinking problem and he's cheating and he doesn't know how to handle money and he's lying and he's a problem, he's a problem. And all of those things were not helpful. However, when I took my attention and put it over here where I had control, my life just started to unfold in the most magical ways.
Um, what advice would you have for maybe I'm going to throw out 3 different categories. Feel free to pick which one or all 3. But what advice would you have for people who are just starting to date, um, young couples, and newlyweds?
Yeah. I got a lot of those people in my world right now. So I have a lot of nieces and nephews and kids in that stage of life. Um, I tell them my son and his girlfriend moved in together a year and a half ago, and I said, "This isn't going to be fun." So that's the first thing. Do not plan for fun because like the fun part's over. If you're moving in together, it's getting hard. So that's the first piece of advice I give is like, don't plan for fun. Um, and the other piece of advice is like, I believe this is my belief system and everyone might not share it, but I believe that when we couple up with someone, we are here to support each other's spiritual growth and evolution, and personal growth, however that looks. So expect that. Expect it to be hard. And hard does not mean there's a problem. Hard just means growth is wanting to happen. So commit to growing. And the last piece of advice I give is pay attention to your partner's willingness. Like if you want to grow and your partner's not willing to grow, again, doesn't mean it's a problem. It just means maybe it's not the right match for you. And everyone's not meant to last forever. So it's not a problem if it ends.
Um, all right. My last question is: we want to eliminate conflict completely?
Oh, I don't think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what I say to people that I work with and my kids is we want to eliminate the what's the word I'm looking for? The conflict that's not helpful. I can't find my adjective right now.
Like
A dangerous conflict.
danger.
Dangerous conflict, or yes, like conflict is it's necessary. It's we break our bones and we grow. Like this is this is necessary for growth. And if we have no conflict, we have no growth. My husband is conflict adverse, and it's a problem in our marriage because I want the conflict. Of course, I don't want it to be
plates flying and daggers and bullets.
Yeah, destructive. Mm-hmm. Destructive. The word is destructive. I don't want it to be destructive, but it needs to, rub up against our edges. So, because if there isn't conflict, we're staying in comfort, and inside comfort, there's also complacency, and inside complacency, other things can happen as a result of that. So often resentment happens in complacency. So I think conflict's vital for growth, but I think we can do it in a really constructive versus destructive way.
Yeah, I feel like we do kind of have to live in some form of tension, which reminds me of an old saying, like if the string is too tight, it will break. It's too loose, it will not play. So you kind of have to have an equilibrium that always pushes you forward.
Yep, that's 100% I agree.
Awesome. Do you guys have any more questions?
I like that.
No, I know, Annmarie, you were up against a timeline or a 2
I did. I told my team I was going to be a few minutes late. So.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks.
And you are.
Yeah,
sorry about that.
Yeah, thank you, Rex. Cut it right there.
Thanks for joining us today. Hey, do us a favor and take a second to subscribe to our podcast and the Utah Marriage Commission YouTube channel at Utah Marriage Commission, where you can watch this and every episode of the show. Be sure to smash the like button, leave a comment, and share this episode with a friend. You can also follow and interact with us on Instagram at Stronger Marriage Life and Facebook at Stronger Marriage. So be sure to share with us which topics you loved or which guests we should have on the show next. If you want even more resources to improve your marriage or relationship connection, visit strongermarriage.org, where you'll find free workshops, e-courses, in-depth webinars, relationship surveys, and more. Each episode of Stronger Marriage Connection is hosted and sponsored by the Utah Marriage Commission at Utah State University. And finally, a big thanks to our producer, Rex Polanis, and the team at Utah State University, and you, our audience. You make this show possible. The opinions, findings, conclusions, and recommendations expressed in this podcast do not necessarily reflect the views of the Utah Marriage Commission.